Hi there, still on your research protocol. And here we'll be talking about the contents, form, style, and some tips about your preliminary pages and appendices. So oftentimes we neglect the preliminary pages and appendices, but these are crucial parts of your proposal or even your final research output. Without the preliminary pages and appendices, your output would not be as scholarly as it is. This will also be a reminder to you that we document all parts of your research. Some of them may not appear on chapters 1, 2, and 3, but they are recorded in the appendices of our output. Hence, the importance of appendices. Now, the preliminary pages. Your preliminary pages is like a window to your research paper. As a window to your research paper, it will give the audience, it will give the reader the first impression that they would have on your research output. Hence, it's very important for us to have a scholarly preliminary pages. Now, the title page. The title page, take note, is page I. However, that is not numbered. So your title page should contain the title of your research, the name of the institution, the name of the authors, and then the date. The title page would vary between institutions, hence you need to take note of the format of your respective institutions. Second, the approval sheet. The approval sheet would bear all the signatures of the panel members and your advisor and the dean of the college. That would indicate that your paper is approved already for final publication, okay, or for finalization of your output. The approval sheet is done after your final oral defense once you have revised as per the recommendation of the panel members. Then you have the acknowledgement. The acknowledgement would contain your thanks to all people who have formed part and parcel of your project. A reminder in your acknowledgement is that it should be in third person. In other words, we do not say we in acknowledgement. Instead, you say the researchers. You do not say I would like to. Instead, you would say the researcher. Okay, it's always in the third person. The researchers would like to convey their thanks to the following groups. Number 1, 2, 3. Okay, up to you if who are the person or people important to you that you need to mention for your acknowledgement. Then you have your table of contents. The table of contents should detail the contents of your research, and then you need to make sure that the numbers indicated in the table of contents are accurate on the number of the pages in the actual document. There are oftentimes errors on the pagination, hence in the finalization of your output, you need to make sure that the table of contents should be in the same, should reflect the same page as the actual page number that this section of the document really bears. Then you have your abstract. The abstract is actually made after your final defense already. In other words, you already have conducted your research. An abstract may be made before your final oral for the purpose of checking it. Ideally, an abstract should only be 200 to 250 words. In the 200 to 250 words, it should contain the introduction, the methods, results and analysis, and then also the discussion. Okay, again, introduction, methods, results, analysis, and discussion. Okay, take note of those things. Now, the list of tables. It would contain, of course, the listing of all the tables in your research. That's from table 1 up to the last table that you would have. It would contain the list of the title of your tables and the corresponding page number for that table. Then you would have the list of figures. Commonly, if you're embarking on your quantitative research, the list of figure is usually your conceptual framework, would include your conceptual framework. If you are embarking on quantitative researches, especially experimental type, there may be figures that would illustrate how will you do the experiment. There are figures or concept maps and diagrams that would discuss or detail the step-by-step process in the experiment that you will be conducting. Then the appendices, oftentimes the ignored part, but they don't know that the important details could be answered by the appendices. So your appendices would come after your references. Again, the appendices would come after the references. So what are included in the appendices? One, you have the informed consent. In the informed consent, take note that the following should be included. the background and objectives of your study. When I talk about background, you do not need to copy paste the entire background that you have under your chapter 1. The background that you should be giving here is the one that could be understood by your prospect respondent. Then you narrate the objectives of the study. Then you need to emphasize that participation to this study is voluntary. Also, you need to specify whether there will be risk and inconveniences. You need to mention the benefits, the cost and compensation, and then privacy and confidentiality, and who to contact. As of this time, for who to contact, you may indicate the name of the team leader and then the research advisor to be contacted if ever there are concerns on the research to whom they are participating. So that's the informed consent. Okay? The informed consent is very important because it will answer to the ethical considerations of your research. Next, you have the instrument. For the instrument, you need to be able to have a clear instruction as to how they will be accomplishing your instrument. Part 1, what's the title of Part 1? And then have a specific instruction under Part 1 and have a very good format for your instrument. The instrument needs to be organized. The instrument needs to be easily understood or easily understandable to the degree of the participant in such a way that you will be able to gather the data that is needed for the research. Part 2, Part 3, 4, 5, just continue until you're able to complete the parts that you need for your research. For the purpose of guidance, the number of variables may be able to guide you on the number of parts that you need. Usually, okay, the antecedent variable would be part 1, independent will be part 2, and then the dependent will be part 3. If you have two independent variables, then that will be part 2 and 3, and then the dependent variable will be part 4. You are basing your questionnaire based on the variables under study. The next component is your Gantt chart. So when I talk about Gantt chart, basically the Gantt chart will be detailing the dates, your target dates that you need to accomplish for your research. So your Gantt chart is like a calendar of activities. However, it is formatted in a way that we will be able to know if what activities are simultaneous to one another and one activity will be next after the other. So as you can see here, if you would look at this Gantt chart, you can see that they are aiming for a title defense on December 2020, and then proposal preparation by December 2020 to 2021, and then advising of research proposal until they were able to conduct the interview, until they were able to analyze the results. So your target is that by the end of the second semester, you should have already a hardbound research output. So try to key in the activities that you need to include. Consider this one, your pre-oral defense, the revision after pre-oral, your ethics review submission, then your interview, if ever you're conducting qualitative research. If quantitative research, then your data gathering process. Okay, so you give it time so that you'll be able to estimate whether your project is feasible or not. So you refer to that one as your Gantt chart. Next, your communications. Basically, your communications are like your letters. So your communications are like that of your letter to your advisor, the letter for your teachers to validate your instruments, or letter to experts to validate the instruments, and then letter to the institution. For example, a letter to the hospital where you will conduct the research, maybe a letter to your a dean if you'll be conducting the research in the school where you are studying, the letter to the university president if ever you need to conduct a research in another university, and the like. Okay, so all of those communications should be clearly stated and should be clearly detailed in your communications. Then you have the validation of results. So in validation of results, these are basically done in qualitative research. This appendix is important. After you have done your research, you need to present the research again to your participants, and then they need to sign a paper indicating that indeed your interpretation of their experience is the same as their actual experience. So you refer to that one as validation of your results. You also have the validation of questionnaire, which is for quantitative researches. The validation of questionnaire for quantitative researches will be the one signed by your validators, which indicate that your questionnaire is already validated. Then we have the certificate for plagiarism scan. So plagiarism scan is done through another department depending on the university. And plagiarism scan could also be done by your respective professors. So there will be a certificate indicating that your output is not plagiarized, or your output would have a 20% identity only online. Okay, 20% replication only online. Beyond that, it's considered to be plagiarized. Hence, you need to repeat your analysis for that purpose. So that's the certificate for plagiarism scan. Then you have the certificate for ethics review. The certificate for ethics review is utilized if your research has undergone approval from the University Research Center, or for example, the University Ethics Review Board, or any ethical review board for that matter. So again, the ethics review is done by an ethics review board, and the ethics review board is the one that would issue the certificate for ethical review. The certificate for ethical review is done by a body or by an organization or a group of people which is independent from the college where you are working. Okay, or else it will be biased. So it needs to be separate from the college where you are working. Next, you have the certificate for statistical analysis. This is usually issued to us by the statistician, which is a certification that would guarantee that your statistical analysis is indeed accurate. This type of certificate is usually required after you are already done with your research and statistical analysis were already done. Next, you have the certificate for grammar, form, and style check. Depending on the university, the certificate for grammar, form, and style check is done when you are already done with your research. If you have already done your output, for us to have the certification and guarantee that your research is sound grammatically and based on form and style. Next, you have the SPSS tables. This is for quantitative researches also. So SPSS is Statistical Package for Social Sciences tables. This will show us the tables that were generated by SPSS. It is not shown to us, or it is not the table that is reflected on your chapter 4. Because be mindful that not all details indicated in chapter 4 or not all details generated by SPSS need to be presented in chapter 4. Okay, not all details, only the relevant ones. But these SPSS tables will be indicated under your chapter, under your appendixes. Then you have the matrix of analysis. The matrix of analysis is of particular use when you're talking about qualitative researches. It is in the matrix of analysis wherein you will show us what are the significant statements, what are the sub-themes, what are the significant meanings first, then the sub-themes and themes that you were able to generate from the interview with your participant. So it would go like statement on the first column. The second column is the significant meaning or the meaning. And then the third one is your sub-themes. And then the fourth one is the themes. That will be all for your research protocol. I hope that this series of lectures were able to guide you in the formulation of your research protocol. Thank you for your interest in this discussion.